Hi, everybody. I am Kevin Ioli from Yahoo Sports, and I think we're setting a record here. My next guest, I believe, sets a record for being on with me the most times of anybody, beats anybody else out. The great Shawn Porter. How are you, Shawn?
What's the record?
Two.
Two? We're at three.
We
So
go to three, so you are
I think
now the
it's
champ,
3 or 4 for us now. So yeah,
undisputed, and I'm happy
yeah.
to have you being the guy.
Thank you.
So on Saturday, September 8th, at the Barclays Center on Showtime, you have a very tough fight coming up. A fight that I'm really looking forward to. I think it's going to be a fantastic fight against Danny Garcia. And let's start here. I have picked Danny Garcia to win a number of fights, and people always tell me I'm wrong. I picked him against Amir Khan. I picked him against Lucas Matisse. Some of his more recent fights, and people dog this guy. I think Danny Garcia kind of gets a bad rap. I think he's pretty good. I want to get you're fighting him. You studied him a lot. What's your breakdown of Danny?
I'm not gonna ask who you picked to win this fight.
Well, we're going to talk about that.
I'm not gonna ask who you picked to win this fight. My take on Danny is he. I think Danny has always, even in a win, done things to make you think that he could have lost the fight. And also, not only that, I think, he has underachieved
Interesting.
in a lot of his fights. But I think that Danny does some things that are second to none. He is very great at um, how he's decided to win his fights. And I think that he's left a lot of bad taste in a lot of mouths because of that. I think
Let's get
that
into it. I mean, that's an interesting thing you say that he's underachieved. He's 34-1 with 20 knockouts, and I think when you look at his career, I'm just going to go back. I think 6 years because I think he fought Kendall Holt in 2011. I think he fought Nate Campbell before that, but I think Campbell was kind of on his last legs. But I think from the Kendall Holt fight on, he's been fighting pretty elite people. And he's winning all the time, winning pretty convincingly. What do you see is when you're
here's what I can do as a competitor going up against him now is what I can do is not look at what other people have looked at and said, oh well, he should have won that fight, or oh well, he should have done this to that guy instead of so on and so forth. I think the guy has mastered his craft. He has become a premier counterpuncher. And not just the classic counterpuncher who will counterpunch every punch thrown. He will counterpunch that one or that second shot or that third shot and leave those guys helpless. That's what I've seen him do. I've seen him become not the classic counterpuncher who is going to counter the jab or going to counter the right hand. You never know which punch he's going to counter, but when he does make a counter, when he does make that move, it usually ends up being a very substantial move and pivotal move in that point in the fight. And I think that that's what has made him great and made him, unstoppable up until Keith Thurman.
I think if I'm reading you correctly, you're talking about he's not a high activity fighter, right? Is that fair to say?
Yeah, no, he's not a high activity fighter. There's no secret in that. But I think there's a secret in how he's able to win. And I think we figured out that secret.
The thing that I see about him, and I wonder, the matchup that's interesting with you is you put pressure like nobody in the game. I mean, you're going to be right in his grill the entire
Yeah,
time, and he knows it.
yeah.
36 minutes, he's going to know that. I have not seen him fight going backwards very well. And I think that's an imperative against the Shawn Porter. Would you agree with that?
I think so. I think you got to know what to do against me, and not many people have been able to figure it out. I think one thing against me is you will get pushed backwards. There's no secret in that. And what do you do when you get pushed backwards? What do you do when you have to take a step back? And I think that in previous fights, he's shown that moving backwards and having to fight moving backwards has not been, quite. He hasn't been quite as successful in that, to say the least. I think that what I have that those other guys don't have is that I'm not going to stop.
Correct.
Those other those other guys will push you back, but they don't have the power, or they don't have the relentless mental fortitude, or they don't have the speed to keep it going. And I think that that's something he's going to run into with me. And the big question that he's going to get asked against me is, can you keep up? Can you figure out how to fight me going backwards?
The one thing that, and I think it was most notable in the Burrow fight, but it's happened in your career, guys, when you put that kind of pressure on him, I think they think this guy has to be following me. And guys complain a lot about that you follow them a lot. You haven't been charged with too many points taken off you in your career, have you?
I don't think I've ever had any points
Yeah,
taken in a fight. I'm not a fighter that looks to be dirty. I don't look
right,
to low blows. I don't look to use my head. I don't look to use my elbows and throw foul shots.
right.
I'm a very, very clean fighter. It just so happens that guys can't handle the roughness, and I think that at points, even for myself, at points I get a little too rough. Even
Right.
so, I think there's some adjustments that have been made and throughout my career, and adjustments that will be made before we get in the ring with Danny Garcia. I think that this will be one of the cleanest fights you've seen me fight.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, because I was going to say, like, I watched a number of your fights yesterday, and I was looking for fouls because I hear guys say that, and I didn't really see any. And so I thought the referee is going to be big in this and let you fight your fight, because I think the only problem that I see with your pressure sometimes is you swarm so much that you lose your punching space, and that you take your own punching space away. And then if you get into that right distance, you're going to be a heck of a difficult challenge for Danny, because you're going to be right on him and have room to punch.
I agree with that 100%. I think that there's no secret in boxing. You got to know your range and your distance in the fight, and it changes. It changes every round throughout the round. And I think that that's one adjustment that I'm going to make in this fight. I am not going to get caught up and overzealous, thinking I'm going to knock this guy out. Go, go, go.
Right.
Especially with Danny. Danny's that fighter who will, as you go, he will go. And in his previous fights, he's finished exchanges on the better end.
Right.
So I know that just as much as you have that green light to go, you got to have that yellow light to be aware of what's going on. Not be cautious, but be aware of what's going on.
You're a professional, so this probably won't bother you, but I'll ask you anyways, because I think the public thinks about it a lot. His father, Angel Garcia, is one of the big trash talkers in sports, and he's gone. He went after Keith Thurman at a press conference. Gets in guys' faces. Mentally, that can play a game on you. Almost like sometimes I think he's trying to get the opponent so wrought up that they want to kill Danny and then allow Danny to counter. How do you make sure that you don't get caught up in Angel Garcia's game and get yourself angry at what he's doing and try to take it out on Danny?
Yeah, I think it's a double-edged sword. What caused Angel to do the things that he did against Keith Thurman. Keith was very loud as well, and really got Angel going. Got Angel going to the point where he lost his mind and lost himself in a moment or two, because I remember there were more than one instance where things really were crazy and uncontrollable for Angel Garcia. And I think when you flip the card, it causes Angel to be very it causes Angel to be a instrument in the fight. And I'm gonna do my best so that he is not an instrument. I'm gonna do my best so that he is. He's there, but he's not there. Angel's in the corner, but we're not going to allow Angel to do anything that is going to make him anything that is relevant before, during, or after the fight.
So, who knows what's going to happen next? And I know you have to focus on winning this fight. But
Yeah.
the logical talk had been, hey, you two are at the top of the division. Keith hasn't been fighting. If you win, the winner's going to fight Errol Spence. And now all of a sudden, Mikey Garcia has jumped into the
Yeah.
fray. I love that Mikey Garcia is challenging Errol Spence. I mean, I don't know that it's the wisest thing in the world for a smaller guy like that because Errol's a big welterweight. But how do you take that? I mean, are you miffed? I know you're not. You respect Mikey for what he's trying to do, but are you miffed that hey, you may have somebody usurp your opportunity?
Well, I mean, I think two things right there. I mean, as a fighter who knows and understands the business, I have looked at every logical point all the way up until the fact that before I got in the ring to call out Danny, logically, I thought that it made sense to do it. I thought logically this fight would be the next fight, and it just so happened. I'm not saying I'm a mind reader, I'm a fortune teller or anything like that. I just, from a logical standpoint, I thought that this fight made sense and it could happen, which is why I got in the ring. I think right now, logically, I am the next fight for Errol Spence. I think logically it makes sense for me to be a natural 147-pound fighter, a champion after this fight with Danny Garcia. And I think that logically it makes sense for me to get in the ring next with Errol Spence. I think that Keith Thurman has been gone far too long.
Right.
Even if Errol says, "Hey man, I'm not fighting you next," then I'm gonna really have to consider who else is out there logically that makes sense outside of Keith Thurman, because there are at least one or two guys out there that make sense. But I do think that Garcia, the Mikey, is he's really right now he's moving at such a speed that he doesn't want to slow down, and I respect him for that. He's moving at such a speed that he knows if I have the chance, I can get there. I have to respect that in any fighter, So for him to call out one of the biggest names in the welterweight division, it does catch you by surprise. But at the same time, I understand it because I know how he feels. I know he understands where he's at right now in his career, and he should do it. And so, if that fight does happen, I'll more than likely be there. And I'm was at first a little surprised that he called out Errol Spence, but afterwards taking a look at the momentum that he has going fight after fight now since he's come back, and he's looked great, and he wants to look great against the best. So in some ways it does make more sense than most people think.
Size, I always subscribe to the theory a good big man is going to beat a good little man, right?
Yeah.
And I don't mean height when I say that. I mean just and Errol is a good big man, and I would think Mikey would be. What is the impact of size in a fight? Like you've been in many fights. What do you think the impact of size is in this?
And I've always been that guy who has defied the odds of size, So I do understand, at some point it does not matter how tall or how big you are. Only thing that matters is the skill and the intelligence. And I think that maybe that might be the weapon that they think is going to be what could lead them to victory against Errol Spence. Is that even though they may lack in size, virtually just pounds in terms of him not being the big man that steps in the ring against Errol Spence, but they also know that there's more that goes into a boxing match than just your size, and I think that is the reason why. So here's the thing: you have a fighter. I want to fight you. But you also have your team. Your team is going to direct you whether or not you should say that.
Right.
And I think the team collectively, they understand that there's more going on there
Right.
than just the size, which is what they can bet their last dollar on.
If you fight Spence next, I would think that probably would be in New York or Las Vegas, maybe Dallas. But if you defend against somebody else, let's assume that you beat Danny Garcia, and I know you believe you will. You beat Danny Garcia. How about fighting in Cleveland? Your hometown. And here's what I wanted to ask you. Stipe Miocic, the former UFC heavyweight champion from Cleveland, he drew I think 20,000 two separate times there. Al Heyman is from Cleveland, has connections there. Would that be something that you think could be doable? And have you had a conversation with Al about that?
Let me say this: I I love what I've been able to do in Brooklyn. I love the New York fans. I don't feel like I owe them anything, but I do feel like they've been there to watch me fight and watch me bring back, win my first title and, come back time and time again. This will be, I think, my fifth fight there in the Barclays Arena. So
Right.
I do appreciate everything that and the energy that comes with being in New York. But if I did have the opportunity to fight in Cleveland, I drop everything and do it. Why? Because I remember being a little kid thinking that this is where I was gonna fight someday. And that's only happened one time in my career back in 2010. So I'm looking forward to doing it again. The talks up until this point is that it may not happen for a lot of reasons, but that I really wouldn't want to say over an interview. But I do understand. But at the same time, my dad knows my heart. He knows
Right.
that along with this WBC title, fighting in Cleveland is something that is really deep down inside of me that I want to make happen. So we shall see. I think it would happen if we didn't. I think Errol Spence. I think that fight's too big to go to Cleveland or DC.
Right. I agree.
Not DC, Dallas. I think that's a fight fitting for Vegas, a fight fitting for New York, or even a fight fitting if we decided to do something crazy and go over to England and do something like that. I
Oh
mean,
wow.
they selling out stadiums over there, So we obviously have that. I'm just not bringing that to your attention, But I think that a fight with myself and Errol Spence, it's worth at least talking about going overseas. It's worth at least talking about going to New York, Vegas, Dallas, Cleveland, where I'm from, Dallas, where he's from. I think it all. I think that at the end of the day, him and I want to fight. I think that we should figure out where we want to fight, how much we want to fight, and when we're going to do it.
Well, let's end with this. Boxing fans are blessed with there's more quality boxing on TV now than
I
there's
agree.
been in a long time. Unfortunately, you have to pay for it in some cases. Top Rank has the deal with ESPN. There's fights on ESPN, but they also have the streaming service. Showtime, is a premium cable network, so you have to buy that. And DAZN is starting out, and they are going to be September 22nd in the U.S. $9.99. So I have two questions about that. One, does it concern you that it'll get so spread out that we get into these leagues again where all the best fighters are in separate leagues and we don't get a chance to fight? One of the great things about Showtime in recent years for the welterweights, all you guys have been with Showtime, with Al Heyman, all in the same organization. And then
Let me
secondly,
answer that one first.
go ahead.
I think that boxing, I think the business of boxing, and I think boxing is getting much better, and I think it's getting too big to do the league thing anymore. Obviously we have what we call stables, but even outside of the stables, I think that boxing is going to get to the point where you everybody wants to see it, and I think the business side will understand that and take care of itself.
I want to see you fight Terrence Crawford. I think Terrence Crawford's an amazing fighter. I want to see you fight him. And I don't want it to say, well, you know what, if you don't fight him on ESPN, it's not going to happen. Or if he doesn't
Yeah,
fight you on Showtime, it won't happen.
yeah,
And it's just,
yeah. Yeah, I agree with that 100%. There's no telling what's going to happen, but I do think that moving forward, boxing is going to be so big that everybody's going to get a piece of the pie, and they're going to appreciate the pie that they get.
and that's my final question for you. I wanted to say, given all these opportunities that are out there, Shawn, do you feel like this is a great time to be an elite fighter? Because now, hey, you get your free agency, and you're going to have people bidding on you and maybe offering you more money than you've ever made.
Yeah, and I do. I think that this is the best time to be in the welterweight division. When we made the move some odd number of years ago, I didn't know this was going to be what it was going to be, but it's a phenomenal right now. And I was just speaking to somebody the other day, in terms of the economical side of the welterweight division, it's just really, really coming to a new era and a new, just beautiful, exciting time to be a part of boxing.
Well, this is one of the best human beings in the sport of boxing, one of the best fighters in the world. September 8th in Brooklyn, Barclays Center, you will see him, Mr. Shawn Porter against Danny Garcia. We went through, what is this, 20 minutes without a pick. So I'll just
I
leave it
gotta
without a
say,
pick.
for me, it is has always been more important for me to be a terrific individual than just a terrific athlete, terrific boxer. So as much as I try to do my best inside the ring, I always try to do my best outside the ring. That way, people understand that we're so much different than we used to be as boxers. We're more intelligent. We're more fun, and you know, we're good people. You know, so I hope that I'm doing a good job at not just representing myself and my family, but you know, my sport and other athletes as well.
There aren't many like you. You're one of a kind, my friend. I appreciate you as
I'm
always.
working on it, man. God bless. We'll see you soon, huh?
See you soon. Thank you.
All right.
Be well, Shawn.